Eros's X-ray found at least a dozen of those niddlight-powered diamonds under the floor of Permata's ocean, but it wouldn't be enough if the time to take them came. We had to consider Lupa's advice and scour other regions of the planet. Also, instead of showing me through a hologram from his memory chip, Eros showed me in person what a pearly was. He brought to the shore one of the creatures cupped in his claws. Worm-like, shrimp-like even, with the way its lower half and tail curled inward. 2 wing-like fins on the back. A little mouth, its lips pursed in confusion. 2 stubby arms, hardly arms at all. The body color a light pink, spotted with a light green. The eyes were like Orgo eyes, black and beady, but with a third eye on top of the head, where there were also 2 antennae that curled at the tips. And as I expected from the moment I heard the species name, the pearly had a pearl, protruding from the body like a Permatian's gem, though it was in the abdomen, not the chest. The tiny thing stared up at me and Guff when we came to look. In delighted wonder, Guff gently drew his hand close to it, seeming curious about the pearly's texture, which I could already tell was smooth and moist. But just before his fingers could make contact, the pearly surprised all of us by making an abrupt, speedy jump from Eros's hands to back in the water. I caught a glimpse of it flying over Eros's head in a clear arch before it disappeared behind him with a funny plop in the water. Guff quickly waded knee-deep into the water with his hand outstretched, slumped his shoulders, then turned around with a smile and a dismissing shrug. "That crosses that off the list, I suppose," I said. "We've met a pearly."
When I get better at swimming, I'm going to find one myself and catch it like Eros did.
Guff said with enthusiastic determination. "Let's focus on the underground crystals," I said. "We should keep looking. There has to be an area somewhere that has clusters of them, right?"
Should I go get Lupa and ask her?
Guff offered, already taking to the air and moving towards the forest. I grabbed his foot before he could fly out of my reach. "Don't be a fool! You could run into other Vajras. It's not worth it." Expression contemplative, Guff brought himself back down to the sand when I let go.
Maybe if we can get that pearly back and ask it.
"Negative, child,"
Eros told him.
"I encountered a school of them. None were responsive to any of my questions."
Guff lightly kicked the sand.
Ah, darn. I guess they don't talk.
Eros continued his search in the sea. In total, 27 crystals were found by the time Permata's sun was touching the horizon. Guff spent this time swimming at a safe distance near the shore, trying to communicate with the still sleeping Niddlies, and drawing me, Eros, and himself in the sand with a stick. Meanwhile, I paced around, forming plans, backup plans, and ideas for any machines. And the more I thought about the situation, the more I questioned the hastiness of my leaders. Even if the Permatians had a negative opinion of the Erkin race, they still were not a threat. As far as I was concerned, their only plan was to keep going about their personal lives with no intention or capability of attacking Urk. Why wouldn't it be easy to put our focus on only the Vajras? If anything, arresting or destroying only them would probably be rewarded with the Permatians' respect. Vajras were enemies and predators to them. But now I had Lupa to worry about. She wouldn't deserve to be destroyed. And maybe there were more Vajras who thought like her. Vajras I hadn't met. Damn it. I cursed under my breath at the thought of this. I knew the tallest would think less of me if they found out that I was trying to soften the blow of the invasion. If they caught me with all of these crystals, I would have to say that I was using them for my own benefit, for an invention in the works, or say that I was simply removing them from the planet to weaken it, further depriving the Permatians of their power and life source. I hoped we would see Lupa again. I should have asked her if removing the crystals would have a negative effect on the planet like I would make my people think. I couldn't give them that impression if it was correct. Surely Lupa wouldn't have told us about collecting the crystals if it meant threatening the state of her world. Surely Guff would have sensed that from her. And surely Guff would have already been told about the crystals by his parents if their worth was so vital. We soon flew Guff home before it could get too dark for him. Then we returned to our cave. I began putting together my own drilling device, one that was small enough to be portable, but still strong enough to cut through a hard, crusty surface. I borrowed Eros's memory chip to virtually copy from it the detection of the crystals to program the drill to do the same. I told Eros the following afternoon that if Guff was waiting at our meeting spot, he needed to let him know that I was too busy for another adventure, and that he should wait another day before expecting me. I also told Eros to scan for more crystals, on land this time. He found another 8 that day. 5 sandwiches, 1 soda, and 3 water bottles later, I was finished with my little drill. I was 1 test away from being prepared to collect the crystals when needed. I needed Guff again. I would find him Permata's next morning. I wanted to see how effective these crystals really were with Permatians. That made 2 tests that needed to be passed. Just like how we met up right before I first brought him into my cave, Guff was already flying towards us before we had a chance to land. He was still as wobbly as ever. Eros and I opened the window for him, and he dropped himself beside me.
Hello.
He panted. Hello, I returned, then noticed Guff's somber expression. What's the problem? Didn't you miss me?
A lot. Dad and Mama are too frustrated to do anything with me, and I can't play with Fertley and Truff because, you know, they think it's weird and scary that I like you.
That's a shame.
Can I just live with you?
Taken aback, I met Guff's pleading eyes. Pardon me? Guff rubbed his arm.
Not live with you, I mean, I just want to stay with you until you leave.
Guff, I'm not sure. I glared slightly in thought, recalling the 2 times I had seen Guff around his parents, and recalling the things he told me about them. I may not have had a clear understanding of what parenting is supposed to be like, but clearly these parents did not enjoy having their little shard around, and wouldn't mind his absence, I concluded with a disgusted frown. Fine, I'll keep you with me from now on. Yes, it's better this way, I believe.
Good.
Guff sighed happily as he climbed in between me and the chair, and leaned against me, back to back.
So, what are we going to do today?
The drill sputtered and paused a few times, but it did what it was built for. It was able to cut through the ground. It was drawn to the energy of the crystals, which it could grab with a magnetic pull. It returned to us through the hole where it had left in the first place. It stopped its rotation and floated higher until it pulled out the bright cyan crystal that had followed it through the hole. It was my first time seeing this niddlight-powered type of crystal with my own eyes. Wonderstruck, I took it in my hands and examined it. I had told Guff to stand back in case the drill malfunctioned dangerously. When we all saw that it didn't, Guff flew on top of my head.
Diamonds above! Your thing worked, Syss! I love your powers!
What? I chortled in confusion.
Your power! You know, building stuff like this. And like the cave house. And the ship.
I wouldn't call it a power. Not like yours, I mean. We're not magic. We're just skilled in science.
Science is magic!
Whatever you say. Hold this, Guff, and tell me if you feel anything. I gave Guff the crystal, and his eyes glistened before he touched it. He held it in both hands, and stared at it for a while, eyes wide. Well? I asked. Guff took a shaky breath.
It's like our normal light, but it feels different. Is this what the Niddlies give us? It's so beautiful.
I take it that means it would keep you alive for 2 days in the dark?
Yeah, I believe that.
Would you trust it with your life?
Definitely.
That's a good sign, I suppose. You've always been rather confident in the things you feel, like me. So does this mean you would be willing to test it in the dark? Guff cocked his head at me.
Well, it's not dark right now.
It's dark somewhere, I said. The other side of Permata, where the sun isn't shining right now. We also have to go there to locate more of those niddlight-powered crystals. So, come on, little soldier.
Yes, sir!
Guff said with his head high, trying to mimic the salute Eros usually made. Guff's was too far forced to be fully taken seriously. I flew us to a region that was currently untouched by sunlight. I let Guff choose where to land. He took his time, which was too long for my liking, but I kept my nerve, for I felt that this brave little soldier deserved to at least be as comfortable as he could be while counting on a measly crystal to keep him alive for an evening. He spotted a little pond surrounded by trees. It appeared to be safe enough. Then when we got there, Eros confirmed that it was indeed safe. All that accompanied us were some colorful, quietly singing insects that had no interest in us.
Are there any more niddlies?
Guff asked with a deep yawn, flying sloppily out of the ship and onto the grass.
Negative.
Eros replied, "We're here to look for more niddlight-powered crystals, not niddlies." I calmly told Guff, "Let Eros do his job."
Okay, I'm sorry.
Guff apologized, sitting back against the large trunk of a tree, facing the pond. "Look around within a 1-mile radius," I said to Eros, who saluted in response before flying out of sight. Guff sneezed from the smoke Eros left behind. I made a mental note to manually upgrade his jet legs. I decided that, while waiting for Eros, my job was to monitor Guff. I lay down beside him on the grass, only my antennae touching the tree. They picked up vibrations from the noise of those insects, and it tickled my spine. I shivered and scooted downward. I also found that my back was sore from the last time I rested on solid ground like this. Because of the metal bulge of our packs, lying on our backs was only comfortable with a cushioned surface, like a couch. Groaning in discomfort, I partly rolled over on my right side, the side facing Guff. That was when I saw his curious, slightly focused expression. He was reading me again. I sighed at this. "Are you confused about my pack?"
Yeah,
Guff said.
I guess I am.
"An Erkin's pack is..." I started in a grunt, making another attempt to get comfortable. "It does a lot. It keeps us alive, you know that. It has our memories, our knowledge of how we function and how we came to be, and how we should be. You could say that we're part robot."
Whoa!
And here's my favorite thing. If the pack detects that the body is not conscious and is facing an emergency, the pack will become conscious itself and take control. I summoned my upper left pack leg to display it. You've seen me use the pack legs, but they can move by themselves when they need to.
Freaky! Did your pack ever move by itself?
No. And I'll try not to put myself in a situation where it has to. No promises, though. I have several centuries ahead of me with probably 1,000 more missions to come. Anything can happen. Cradling his niddlight crystal to his heart diamond, Guff crawled to me, then nuzzled into my chest. I squeaked involuntarily when a horn jabbed me.
I don't want you to go anywhere else, Syss.
Guff mournfully said.
I'll miss you, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you.
I wrinkled my upper lip in a grimace, tilted Guff's head into a position that was painless for me, then relaxed again, gazing up at the stars. Worst case scenario, I get caught in a black hole, a wormhole, or some other life-threatening space hole.
Don't give up if you get caught in a space hole.
Guff pleaded.
I believe you're smart enough to escape.
Guff obviously didn't know enough about space disasters. I personally didn't believe they were possible for anyone to escape. But despite this even, I still meant my reply. I'll do my best.
Hey, Syss.
Hmm?
I can hear your heart beating.
What an odd, random comment this was. I blinked and raised a brow. Yes, that's good. I needed to beat. Guff whispered, then yawned.
It's so cool. And nice.
Thanks. I squinted one eye, still perplexed. Guff really appreciated everything about Erkin's. There must have been something about an Erkin's heartbeat that was different from his somehow. Why else would he talk about it the same way he did with everything else about me? I expected him to make more conversation, but he stayed silent, eyes shut and body still. For a long moment, I grew concerned, wondering if our test with the niddlight-powered crystal was becoming a failure. But Guff proved this wrong when his every intake of breath became annoying, roaring purrs. Should I have called them purrs, or honks, snorts? Whatever they were, I recognized them. It's a strange noise some creatures make when asleep. Perhaps it was my heartbeat that lulled him to sleep, considering how much he was admiring it. I wanted to wake him so I could get him off of me and stop listening to that bothersome noise he was making. But if sleep was what his body was currently demanding, I had to let it be. I huffed, wishing I could at least have the freedom to move around. Eros returned after what felt to be around 30 minutes.
Good news, sir.
He reported with a salute.
There are 182 underground crystals within the area you requested.
Hush, hush, I whispered, pointing to Guff. Good work, Eros. I'm glad to hear that. Tell me, how long have we been in the dark with him?
Approximately 50 minutes, sir.
And have you sensed any unusual changes in him? Any sign that his health is deteriorating?
Not that I can see, sir.
Yes, he seems sound. Guff snorted, cringed, then twisted himself into a face-down position with his face hanging over my back. The niddlight crystal slipped from his non-existent grasp. Eros carefully rolled him back over and handed me the crystal. Then he sat beside us. Crystal in hand, I brought my left arm around the child. I made sure to keep the light close to his heart. After some silence, I shook my head and scoffed at myself. I'm doing this all wrong, Eros. Catering to an enemy child, playing with him and giving him soda, saving his people from my own. Am I a traitor?
Not likely, sir.
Eros quietly said. I was told to prepare an invasion, and
you are.
Am I really, though?
You have done enough for our benefit. The tallest know of the Diamond Mountains and their strange solar energy. And they know of the Vajras who threaten us. An invader is sent for observing, passing information, and planning. The Armada is what makes the killing blow.
Many invaders do most of the killing blow by themselves. They're called invaders for a reason, right? And here I am trying to prevent as much damage as urgently possible.
It is strange of you, sir, but it was also strange when you begged for the Almighty Tallest to spare me. If you trust that the Permatians are also deserving of your mercy, I trust you.
Thank you, Eros. Even after another hour, Guff's condition still appeared to be decent. But I had second thoughts when he began to twitch, then mumble, then whimper. It was uncanny. His mind was supposed to be shut down, and clearly still was to a degree, but it was showing more signs of activity than when he turned over.
No.
He seemed disturbed. His arms and legs curled up against him, cowering. He went stiff.
Don't. Mar.
I heard him speaking words.
Don't stay there, Java.
I blinked in concern and sat up, carefully cradling the child. Guff, what?
You have to run with me. Don't trust him. We can't trust him anymore. He's mad. Mad.
What do you mean? What's the matter? The quivering ball of stress in my arms didn't seem to acknowledge me. I wondered if he could even hear me.
No, don't try to stop me. This is all wrong. That's not the same leader we used to respect. He's corrupt.
Guff winced, grunted, then twitched again. I was getting increasingly perturbed with every sample of nonsense he emitted in this unconscious state. It was unnatural to me, and I didn't know what it meant, or how it was possible.
What is this?
Guff whimpered, weakly enough for his voice to crack.
No, please, no. Please. This is wrong. Look what he's already making you do. Look what you're doing.
Guff, open your eyes, stop this. I pleaded. I exchanged a glance with Eros, who was now standing over us, mouth slightly open in alarm. Guff whispered,
Help. Please. My life clock.
I gasped, my brow furrowing. What on earth? I haven't told you about that part of the pack.
I can't see. Java. I'm going to die.
I was one nerve away from jumping back in the ship to take Guff straight home. I gave him a gentle shake. Wake up. Guff, please, immediately. Wake up, look at me. Look at me! Guff turned his head to the side, cringing again, and giving a light kick of his left leg. He grunted and gasped. Perhaps he was trying to wake up, but was stuck. Instead of the ship, I raced for the pond. I dropped into a shallow spot on my knees. With Guff raised an inch above the surface in one arm, I used my other to splash a cup worth of water over the boy's face. He jerked and yelped, and finally I saw his green and periwinkle eyes halfway open. Look at me, look at me. I urged him with my voice hushed, my hand hovering over him. After blinking many times, he made confused, sleepy eye contact. He shook his dripping wet head.
What? Are you wanting me to swim again? I can't do that while I'm sleeping.
No, Guff, I think you were hallucinating. You were saying things that weren't right. You don't remember?
Oh, that's why you're scared. I'm sorry. I had a dream.
A dream?
Dreams are sleep stories that your mind, That one was really weird. Oh, I fell asleep on you. I think maybe I caught something from you.
I don't understand what you're talking about, but I'm glad you're all right. Guff yawned.
I'm glad you're all right too, Hiram.
I stared at him, perplexed. Pardon me? Guff rubbed his eyes.
I said, I'm glad you're all right too.
He repeated, obliviously, like he hadn't realized the strange error from the original sentence. No, what's... Hiram? I inquired. Guff blinked tiredly and shook his head.
Oh, I don't know. Sorry, Syss.
The poor thing was likely just delirious from his surreal dream followed by his rude awakening. I didn't know anything about dream hallucinations. I hypothesized that they had a temporary lagging effect on the brain, hence Guff couldn't think straight yet. I stepped out of the pond, holding the child in both arms again. I'll let you finish that sleep now. I'd like you to be in fair shape. We'll have you in the ship where it's more comfortable. Would that help keep away that hideous dream? Eros had been watching us from the shore. He had the niddlight-powered crystal in his hand. I nodded at him in praise and passed it to Guff.
Sure, I think so.
Guff yawned, rubbing his face against the crystal as he embraced it. How do you feel? I asked. Any weaker? Is that working for you?
I feel the same.
Good. Guff had napped for more than a few hours. The sky was beginning to dawn in this area, which meant dusk for Guff's homeland meanwhile. It also meant the beginning of my 5th day on Permata. Eros was away looking for more crystal locations to remember, leaving me and Guff lying alone next to each other in the ship's cockpit, window open. For hours, I waited with my legs and arms crossed. Guff turned every so often, but didn't show any strong signs that he was having a second dream. With nothing to do for myself, I paid most attention to the calm wind. It wasn't very often that I could smell the dirty but sweet scent of nature. There was something very interesting about it. Other Urkins would probably say depressing or boring or filthy, but peaceful was what I had in mind. Untouched, all natural. Permata's nature was the sweetest to me by far. My sniffs were joined by another's. I glared in confusion, sitting still to get a clearer listen and a clearer understanding. My eyes darted to Guff. A snort from below my ship confirmed that Guff was not responsible for these noises. I was going to investigate, but I had moved only a leg when a creature's face very suddenly peeked into the cockpit and made eye contact with me. Dirt yellow head, nostrils far apart from each other, little red eyes with pink scleras, little pointy ears, little fangs like Guff's, a large green mane. Eros hadn't sensed other creatures other than bugs when we first arrived, so this creature must have come from a long way. It kept staring at me. I squinted uncomfortably, unsure of what to say. Using all fours, it moved, revealing the rest of itself by climbing all the way into the ship, then onto me. Blue-gray body, stubby fingers, leathery wings each with 3 long claws. I shivered when the thing's nose explored me from neck to antennae, sniffing rapidly. It then sniffed at Guff, making him squirm for a moment. I quickly got angry. Hey, shoo! More hard staring. The thing stood still for another while. For the love of Urk, maybe I was wrong to call Guff the goblin, I commented, squinting again as I stared back, examining the thing's appearance once more. The thing glared at me, then at Guff, suspiciously or angrily. It didn't matter to me as long as it would just leave. All right, I said. This has been delightfully creepy. Now be gone, this instant. If you touch us again, you will regret it. The creature circled Guff once, then hovered a hand over him. Show some respect and listen to me, I growled in warning. All of you are mine.
And this is mine.
The creature returned, very speedily snatching Guff's niddlight crystal from his arms and fleeing the ship. Alarmed and furious, I threw myself at the brat and swung an arm. Only a finger grazed one of her flapping wings. I leapt out of the ship with my pack legs as I watched where she went. Hey! What is your problem?
What? Syss?
Guff slurred. I skipped giving him an immediate explanation and charged after the creature that stole his crystal. She had already vanished from my sight through the forest, but I clambered forward after her. As I did so, I alerted my sir through my pack's radio to him. Eros, come here! Someone just robbed us of our crystal! As I said this, I stopped in my tracks, knowing there was no point in chasing after someone I could no longer see. I ran back towards the ship, but unexpectedly met Guff halfway. I staggered, nearly running into him. Hey, what are you doing? I cried.
I wanted to see what was happening.
Guff said, looking up at me with half-sleepy eyes. Eros landed next to us with his arms and legs spread out.
Show me the way, sir.
I turned and pointed ahead. She's around half my size. She's ugly and she flies. Just follow her when you see her. I want to know who her people are and where they are, if she's not alone.
But, what about the other niddlight crystals that Eros found?
Guff asked. I picked him up. We'll get to them if we have to, Guff, but I'd rather not waste time by restarting our test with a new crystal, I said in a frustrated rush. I'm not letting our current test be cut short or delayed, especially just because some beast thought she could get away from me. She has to pay for her insolence. Take us, Eros. Quickly but steadily, we flew over the trees, Guff in my arms and I in Eros's.
There.
Eros said less than a minute later. Evidently, he found the creature somewhere nearly up ahead. He made a careful landing, placing Guff and I back on the ground. He motioned for us to follow him down a dirt path. Guff seemed wide awake now.
Look, it looks like someone walked here,
he said, crouching down and pointing at some footprints. The shapes matched the feet of the thieves. That's her, I confirmed.
Sir.
Eros quietly alerted. He waved a claw, visibly telling us to conceal ourselves in the trees where he led us. From there, we peeked around. I saw a familiar maned and winged figure some yards away, trotting delightfully, still on all fours. And with it, I saw a glint of our stolen crystal.
She doesn't look so ugly to me.
Guff commented.
Hush,
I hissed.
stay quiet.
The three of us edged through the forest together, carefully watching the creature we followed for quite a while. We paused when we reached the end of the forest, which was also the top of a hill. Down below was wide open space, half surrounded by a tall wall of rock connected to our hill. The thief trotted down the slope, ran, jumped, and opened her wings. She glided across the scenery, and I heard Guff breathe a sigh of awe. She then dipped towards the ground and the wall. She didn't bank away from it. This was her destination, surely.
There is a cave full of life.
Eros reported.
Where?
Guff asked.
It is hidden by tinted boulders.
How are you seeing it? And how can you see the crystals underground? How are you doing this stuff?
Eros has his own powers, I said. Guff giggled in amusement. I knew he would. The thief vanished in between the tinted boulders that Eros had mentioned. Let's get her, I hissed with a glare. Eros flew us down. He was right about there being a cave. After a long look, eager little Guff toddled inside. I stepped in front of him with a hand out and a firm expression, signaling him to stay close behind. Cautiously, we entered together, with Eros leading the way. His eyes were the only things glowing in the darkness until we came across an opening that was dimly lit by the color teal. In there were also voices.
There.
Eros said.
2 more of her kind, and many crystals.
The source of the light. I recognized one of the voices as the one of our thief. She sounded as proud as she had looked when we were following her. I was itching to make her regret it.
It was a spaceship.
She said.
The texture was very curious. I got to look inside it, and there was a Permatian with one of our crystals, and next to him, an Urkin. We've been told Urkins are scary, but she wasn't. Rather cute, in fact.
I blinked, insulted.
Takula, you're the cute one.
A male voice scoffed.
Trying to show us up and be a better hero than the rest of us. Why can't you be mature about this? Just help us find more crystals for grandmother and be done with it. No lies. I tell the truth.
The one now known as Takula insisted.
An Urkin and a Permatian were keeping that crystal all to themselves. But I was quick, brave, and clever. I won't let you underestimate me, Pluty. Let me come with you then this time, shall I?
Pluty cooed.
Let's get back to our hunt, and you can show me the Urkin. Go on then.
Takula grunted softly, then said with an arrogant, self-assured tone.
Fine.
I smirked and leaned one elbow against the wall, inches from the entrance. I watched a shadow slide across the floor in front of me. The shadow's caster came trotting after, unsuspecting of what she would come face to face to. Takula turned in my direction, and instantly, her stupid face bumped my knees. She grunted in surprise and found me in my silly leaning pose. She looked up at me, startled. I smiled wickedly in greeting. A member of Takula's kind, presumably Pluti, came around next and cried out at the sight of me first, then at Eros, then at Guff, who laughed at the excitement of surprising those we'd snuck up on.
Here I am.
I said, darkly.